Alrighty, CNT120, Chap3Lab. We just got done looking at port numbers and we saved the packet capture from Wireshark. We'll need to make sure we submit that at the end of the lab. We're now going to take a look at some domain name stuff. And we're going to look at similar things on Windows and Linux again. So let me start on the Windows side, and once we look at those, then we'll pull up the Linux VM and do those. So the first thing we want to look at is, can we see who owns a website? Well, yes, we can. Hopefully you remember when we talked domain names, if I want to put a web server out on the internet, I actually have to buy the domain name, and when I do, I register and plug in name, address, phone number, etc. That is so they know the website is legit, and then eventually in there we say this domain name plugs to this IP, and that's how that gets registered on the DNS servers. Well, we can do the reverse and say, well, this domain name I found, who owns this? So I have a couple options here. Sometimes after so many requests, these websites say, no, it looks like you're trying to spam us. So try this one if it doesn't work, try this one if it doesn't work, try this one if it So I give you a couple options here. That's why you don't have to do on all of them. It's just in case if you try one and it's timing out, you can try the next one. So I'm going to open the domain tools here. And in here, I'm going to try to look up who owns hack.edu. Well, we should know, but we're going to see what the network or DNS servers know as hack.edu. Yes, I'm not a robot. And again, if we do a whole bunch of these as a lab, this might get overwhelmed and think we're spamming. So go to the next one on the list. All right, so we're going to pick our fire hydrants here. It's not on one, but there it is. There's another one. Okay. So we should be able to verify. It should let us in now. And what it's going to do is query saying, okay, DNS servers, what do you know about this hack.edu domain? Well, because again, when Hack bought the domain name, they had to register saying it belongs to blah, this is the address of the server and so forth. We're reversing that. And if we take a look, this was first created in 1995. And right now it was updated at the, looks like fall of 24, and it's going to expire in summer of 27. So Hack is buying this domain and keeping it registered for periods of time. The IP address of the hack.edu website, that is being hosted by Amazon Web Services down in Virginia. And down here is some more details about the college, contacts, etc. Okay. That would let us know who owns a domain name. And again, this is possible because when you bought the domain name, all this information had to get plugged in. So we can reverse that process. Okay. Now, because that has been done, some of the next things we're going to do actually work. All right. So there's the domain name lookup on Windows. Let's take a look at the Linux side before we go down to the command part. And let me pull up our virtual machine. And on our virtual machine, I might need to log back in, CNT class. I'm going to minimize my terminal here, and I'm going to open the browser in here. Hopefully this is updated enough that we can get it to work. We're going to try to pull up a site like GoDaddy.com. So we'll come in here and we'll go www.godaddy.com. And this is a site where I could register a domain name. So if I wanted to have a website, this is where I could actually buy that domain name. So let's try to see if networking is amazing is available. So let's try to type in here, networking is amazing. And we'll say, hey, is this domain actually available? So we're going to search. It's going to search the database and try to find if that has been registered anywhere. If it is, it'll start showing that it is registered. But if it's not, it's like, hey, this is actually available. And I could register this for roughly $10 a year kind of thing. And I can also bundle and start getting a couple domain names, .org, .net, .biz, etc., along with this, and have multiple domain names registered and pointing to a web server. That's what your large corporations do. If you ever thought about, typing in google.com and you typed in goggle.com and it still points to the Google web server, that's because they've done stuff like this. They buy up commonly misspelled domain names so it still points to their resource. So I could actually do this. I could go through this process and plug in my name, my address, my phone number, and then eventually the IP address of the web server that will be hosting this website. And then that gets registered with the DNS servers so that it can eventually be queried for people to get to your website. Okay, that's all part of the process of these domain names and domain name registration. And I could search for other ones out here if I wanted to as well. Well, now, again, since all that was done, let me close out my browser here. I don't want to register anything. Now that that's been done, we can use a command line, command prompt, to find out what the DNS server knows about a domain name. So let me minimize my Linux machine here. I'm going to go back to Windows. I'm going to close that browser. I do not need that open. I'm going to open up the command prompt here, and I'm going to use the NSLOOKUP command. It's basically, hey, DNS server, can you tell me what you know about? So we're going to do NSLOOKUP, and we're going to look up www.hack.edu. So we're like, hey, what do you know, DNS servers, what do you know about hack.edu? And sure enough, they're like, hey, the address is blah. This is the DNS server we hit. We're like, hey, the name is blah. Here's the address of, and basically, if I look at this, we know it's then being hosted by Amazon Web Services. So it's like, hey, this is what the DNS server knows about www.hack.edu. And again, the DNS server knows this because somebody at Hack bought the domain name and put all the information in to point to that web server. So now the DNS servers can get that same information, if you will. And we just queried the DNS server to say, what do you know? So we're going to save that result. Let me do a, highlight that again there. I want to get the NSLOOKUP command. I'll do the enter key here. I'm going to open up my Windows text file. And we're going to say, we'll just call this layer 7 domain names. And I'm going to paste that result in there. There's my NSLOOKUP command result from Windows. I will save that. I'll do a file save and make sure I have that updated file. All right, I will minimize those two. Going back to my Linux virtual machine, let's do the same action over there, but it's called dig. Dig www.hack.edu. So here, open up my command prompt, and we're going to go dig www.hack.edu. Same type of action or request. The result looks a little bit different, but the end result down here is similar. Okay, let me scroll over here. It's similar information. So here's like, hey, this is what we know as. Here's the addresses for. Here's the names for, etc. So this would be the Linux equivalent to what we just did on Windows. And again, it knows this because the DNS servers have this information registered. When we query it, it goes, hey, here's what I know about this name. So I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to copy this guy as well. I will put it into open up my text file. And over here, I'll go layer 7. And we'll call this domain name stuff. Domain name stuff. Domain name. And I'm going to paste that in there. Okay, so there is my dig result. There's my dig result. And I will save that as well. File, save. Okay. So now that we looked at domain names, we've kind of touched on the MAC address, IP4, IP6, port numbers, and domain names. So hopefully you have a little bit of working knowledge of all of these different types of addresses and the different functions or different roles that they have. So what we want to do now is we want to make sure our Windows file has all the information and our Linux file has all the information. So let me minimize my Linux here. I'm going to pull up my Windows file. Here's my Windows file. And I'm going to quick go to the top. I have the MAC address. Yep, this is where my labels really help. I have the IP4 ping. There it is. I have the IP6 ping. There it is. And then I have the domain name or the NSLOOKUP results right there. There we go. So I'm going to make sure I save that. And I'm going to close this. I know it's in my Chap3Lab directory right there. There's my file. That's the one I will submit. I also want to make sure I have the DNS port capture. There it is, DNS port capture. So those two will get submitted to D2L. On my Linux VM, on my text file, I need to make sure I have the MAC address, which I do. Here's the MAC address. This was it right there. Then I have the IP4 ping. There it is. Then I have the IP6 ping. There it is. And then I have my dig results. There they are. Again, I want to make sure I do a file save. I can close that. In the directory here, again, I can go to, here's the student that we're logged in as, go to Documents, here's that Brown 120, and there's my Chap3Lab, that text file. So we now need to make sure all three of these files get to D2L. What I would do is, let me try this right here. We're going to open your browser here, and we're going to try to log into my hack and go to D2L from here. So let me try myhack.edu. Oh, come on now. So let's go to hack.edu. There we go. And now that we're there, we'll pick on my hack. So here should be my hack. We'll log in the D2L from here and put this text file in to the Dropbox on D2L. So let me log in real quick. How's it, Mr. Brown? Now, Mr. Brown I have to plug in two-factor authentication, so bear with me 1 second while I look up that code that we need. There we go. So now on D2L, go to your chapter 3, if you will. I'm going to go to our CNT120. We'll go to the chapter 3 lab Dropbox. So go to the Dropbox. And from here, from the Linux, submit your text file. Okay, so let me do my view here. I need to make sure this is showing a preview for you guys. Chap3Lab, come on. Nope. Come on, Mr. Brown, get with it. There we go, chapter 3. I'm going to do a preview so it looks like. There we go. Chap3Lab. Once I'm in here, I will browse for this just like I do any other one, add a file. So here on Linux, we'll do my computer. We can do upload and we can drag it in, or we can go to Student, Documents. There's my Brown 120, and then there's that file. I could select that and say open just like I normally would. That'll add that in for me. Okay? I'm going to cancel that because I'm not going to submit. But submit that file, and then you'll close out of your Linux VM. So I'm going to log out of everything here. We'll do a log out, close, close. I can then shut this virtual machine down, do here and do power down. And then I will come over on the Windows side, and I will log in just like I normally would to D2L, go to the Dropbox and submit the Windows files. There's 2 of them. Remember, we have the text file plus the port capture. Make sure you get both of those in there. So you'll actually have 2 submissions with 3 files on this lab. And that is our Chapter 3 lab.